So 2 weeks ago, pretty much now, there was, of course, the election day, big election day across the country, but here in London, particularly, it was important for us because we had our mayoral elections. And if you've been following all the work that I've been doing over the last year and a half, maybe a bit more, regarding ULEZ. In fact, the very first ULEZ expansion in particular, actually, let me just clarify, the ULEZ expansion that came in effectively at the end of September last year, 2023. And in fact, the very first video that I did was actually in this car, driving this car around. This is my 1989 BMW 325i E30 series, and I drove it around in that video speaking to the camera, and many videos that I normally would have done like that and do like that. And I said that, well, you know, this thing happens, then I won't be able to do what I'm doing right now, which is driving my BMW Classic and talking to you, because although it's a classic, it's not 40 years plus, so therefore it's not classic historic registered. And you have to be historic registered status for your car. It has to be over 40 years old to then get exemption from tax and MOT and ULEZ. This one isn't. There's another 5 years to go, basically. So, and I said at the time that I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing, and hence right now I am sitting in my car and my car is parked. And I'm not going to take it out because every time I take it out, I have to pay the £12.50 ULEZ charge. So I'm not going to be doing what I was doing in that first video. But I wasn't really actually even planning on talking about the elections, because I was like, well, what else is there left to be said and done? However, it seems I've had a few messages and I've had some comments, etc., that seem to imply that people were expecting me to make some kind of response or reaction video to what happened in the elections, whether or not I actually wanted to. But let's do this then, and we'll do it right after this.
A brown car guy.
So I ended that last intro with whether or not I wanted to, and I've got to be absolutely honest, you know, I've been in a little bit of a funk since that day, not May the 2nd, which was the actual election day, but 2 days after that when we actually got the results, which was a Saturday. A bit despondent, a bit depressed, and a bit like, well, I don't really want to talk about this anymore, sort of thing. That's ultimately the sort of feeling that I had about it, because it did feel like, as I said, you know, over a year and a half of dedicated effort in covering and talking about and exploring the ULEZ expansion, and effectively felt like a lot of that effort has come to naught. So, and like I said, on a personal level, it really sucks, because, you know, if there was any hope that the ULEZ expansion might be overturned, it would mean that, you know, I could use this like I was using it before, which was probably driving about 3-4 times a week. So this is a classic that's pretty much a daily, and I would be driving at that time. But now, of course, I'm probably driving it 3 or 4 times a month. Sometimes more when I need to, but, you know, you have to kind of, it's weird because then you have to start planning ahead. You have to, like, look at the month, look at the dates, look at when you might need the car, because, you know, like, if you use it twice, you're talking about 25 quid pretty much. If you use it 4 times, you're talking about 50 quid. If you use it 6 times, you're talking about 75 pounds in a month. You do use it more than that, you use it 8 times in a month, you're spending 100 pounds. And that's on top of the fuel and the insurance and the tax and everything else. So you end up rationing yourself. You end up going, okay, well, you know, how much do I want to use it? When will I need it? You know, should I take it out? No, I won't take it out tomorrow because I'm going to need it next week. And that's what happens, which is a real shame, you know. And it's a real shame because I absolutely adore driving this thing. I absolutely love it. You know, as many of you know, this is my 35-50 years as a motoring journalist. I've driven pretty much everything. I've struck most cars. There's probably maybe a handful, maybe 2 or 3 cars left on my bucket list. But from a classic Bentley blower to a Formula One car, I've driven everything. You know, and there's a tactile visceral energy to driving something like this that you don't get with many modern cars. In fact, I drive this car to car launches and car events and media events. I'm going to a big one next month actually, where I'll be driving like loads of different cars, and I've done that. This will be the third year that I'm doing that, and it's the third time that I'm expecting to take this car to that event. And the last 2 years the same thing has happened each time. It's like after a day of driving the latest, newest, most technically advanced machinery from manufacturers, and driving it in the Millbrook Proving Ground. So driving it, many of them in enclosed roads where, okay, I mean, there are still speed limits and stuff like that, but you can enjoy the cars there. And even after all that, and the best drive of the day is invariably getting back into this and driving home. Says a lot. So it's really gutting to not be able to drive it, as much as I would have. As much as I would like. But the thing about the election results, so let's get into that. Obviously, we now know that Mayor Sadiq Khan, who is the mayor that introduced the ULEZ expansion, let's be clear, because you put these videos out, like, oh, it's Boris Johnson, it's a Conservative that came out. Yes, it was. Of course, they came up with it. Boris Johnson came up with the idea, but he didn't actually introduce it. He was planning to, and he would have, for sure, if he had carried on. But ultimately, Sadiq Khan came in, and then he took that all of that preparation work that was done, and he brought it forward. Actually, introduced it earlier than it was originally meant to be. And but personally, I don't have a problem with ULEZ in Central London. I've never had. I was like, okay, fine. And I grew up in Central London, so I'm like, okay, I understand. It's busy and congested. It's polluted. Makes sense. I've never disagreed with it. And even the expansion to the North and South Circulars. Okay, once I was happy about it, but I kind of begrudgingly accepted it, because at the end of the day, we're not unreasonable people. At the end of the day, it's like, well, if we need to address issues regarding pollution and the environment and concerns around health, then you go, okay, fine, it makes sense, then it has to be done. But when it came to the latest expansion, which was into outer London, and as I won't cover it in detail because I've covered it in many videos, but it made no sense because A, their own independently commissioned report said that it would have negligible impact, and B, because it would adversely affect the socio-economic status of the communities that lived in outer London, which really relied on their cars, because 69% of outer Londoners rely on their cars compared to, I think it's like 40-45% in central London, if that. But on the election, I would say even on the Friday night, there was some sense of hope, because there were some reports that it might be actually closer than people thought, because he was always expected to win it. To be fair, like right from the beginning, the polls were saying he was gonna win it. So he was always expected to win it. But there was a bit of a surge we all saw with the Conservative candidate Susan Hall gaining a little bit on him. And by Friday evening, there was some talk that actually might be a lot closer than people thought. And I think I posted something that night on Twitter where I said hope is a dangerous thing. Because it was basically, we were getting excited a little bit, because we were like, oh, well, what if, but it was not to be. But the thing was like, okay, even if he hadn't won, but if it had been close, then there could have been some satisfaction to take from that, because it could have been like, okay, we sent a message, right? And they would hear it and they would heed it, because the electorate, okay, you may still have won, but you now know that, people were not happy about it. But unfortunately, that didn't happen either. He essentially walked it. Now, you can all speculate about conspiracies about whether it was fixed or this and that. Personally, I don't subscribe to that, because, the reality of it, there's so many factors that actually explain why he won. So, sorry, got a phone call there. So anyway, what was I saying? So he didn't, it wasn't close. And there's a number of factors. So, you can argue about, whether there's postal votes or conspiracies or fixed or whatever. But the reality is, like, it was so far ahead that you can't argue that. You can just say, like, he won it. And there's a number of reasons for that. And I think chiefly the reason for that is the fact that if you looked at everything that was happening that night, if you looked at all the other elections that were happening across the country, all the other mayoral elections, all the other council elections, Labour absolutely demolished the Conservative Party. And it was one of those things where it wasn't a case of like Labour's winning everything, it was a case of Conservatives losing everything. Let's be absolutely honest, this was an election where the public decided that they were going to punish the Conservative Party for basically screwing up over the last few terms that they've been there. And let's be honest, if you look at the state of the country, if we take the motoring aspect and the ULEZ aspect and the war on the motorist aspect out of it for a moment, you look at overall what's happening and you go, yeah, it's pretty crap. things are pretty crap, from cost of living to crime to investment to transport, public transport, I should say, and chiefly the NHS, which used to be like the envy of the world, and it's sadly something of a joke now. When you look at all those things and then you understand it and you go, yeah, okay, it kind of makes sense. People are really unhappy, justifiably so, and they've decided that they were going to punish the Conservative Party, and that's kind of what happened. And the same thing I reckon happened in London. Additionally, I would say that also the challenge to him was not that great. We could have had stronger contenders, stronger rivals, some more activations, more effort that went into challenging him, but I don't think that it was that great, honestly. I don't think that we actually achieved much in terms of really pushing him up against it. And thirdly, I think the other issue was that there was an element of well, put it this way. A lot of people talk to me over the course of a year and a half, and they say, well, why do Muslims vote for him, or why do Asians vote for him? And I'm like, they don't. That is a complete myth and misconception, especially in light of what he's done. And if you think about how things impact people, the outer London area, who are many of the communities in outer London, I'm here in northwest London, this is entirely Asian and Arab area mostly. And these people all have businesses, they all drive, they all have to be driving, they all have cars, they have older cars, older vans. Particularly, don't forget, businesses were hit hard because diesel vans were hit really hard. Because when we talk about old, we're not talking that old when we talk about diesel, we're talking about pre-2016. Anything pre-2016 gets hit, and that's for a lot of businesses, that's really hard. So no, nobody was happy about it, nobody was going to vote for him. But here's the thing, when he started, so again, like I said, weak campaign, crap campaign against him, and when they resorted to campaigning on his race and his religion, particularly his religion, then it was always going to be a disaster. And I knew it. The moment this guy, Les Anderson, came out with that stupid statement about, oh yeah, it's Islamists control him, and so the Islamists are controlling London, then you're like, okay, you know what you've just done. I said to somebody at the time, I won't say who I said it to, but he knows that I said it to him. And I said to him at the time, I said, you've just handed Sadiq Khan, or Les has just handed Sadiq Khan the election. Because what happens there is that even in the Muslim and Asian community, if there was no sympathy, no desire to vote for him, but all of a sudden, you've now challenged them on the basis of their race and their religion. So all of a sudden, the radar's gone up. They're like, whoa, what? Oh, okay, really? And I said this, and I warned people, and I said this is like, I've said this in so many videos, I've said this to so many people, and I even said it in a speech way back at Trafalgar Square, ULEZ thing. I said, this is not about race, it's not about religion, don't make it about those things, it's about political incompetency. That's what it's about. Focus on the policy, not the person. I said that over and over again. Sadiq Khan didn't introduce ULEZ because he's Asian, or because he's Muslim, or because, he's of a Pakistani heritage. I am all of those things. I am, and I hate ULEZ. This has got nothing to do with any of that, and if you look around the country, things like 20 miles per hour limits and LTNs and all these things are coming in, they're not all being introduced by Asians and Muslims. It's absurd. So, but the thing is, the moment you did that, it came up on the radar, and then a lot of people that would not have voted for him probably thought, okay, yeah, we're going to support him now because now we feel sorry for him. So that's part of it. But even then, when you say that, oh well, that's why he won, it's not true. He won by over 1 million. I think it was 1,188,000 or something. Over 1 million votes. He won, third time, unprecedented, 1 million votes. He was like, I think, nearly 300,000 ahead of. His nearest rival would have been Susan Hall for Conservative Party. And you go 1 million people. You go, all right, okay. So you can argue. You can say that Asians in London are about 20%. So that's 1.8 million because there's 9 million people in London. 9 million people in London. 1.8 million, you could say, are Asian, 20% of the population of London. 1.3 million are Muslims in London. So you could say, oh, well, that's where the numbers come from. But that's absurd. The notion that every single Asian and every single Muslim went out to vote, that just didn't happen. It's not actually possible. And I know for a fact it's not the case. So if you look at the actual turnout, the turnout for the voting was much lower than the previous time. It was 40.5% compared to 42% previously. So again, abject failure, I have to say, on our part. Instead of rousing people up and getting them excited and getting them to go out there and make their voices heard and, go out and vote and tell the authorities what they feel, no, less people went out. People just didn't bother. And even if you say, okay, the 1.3 Muslims or a million Muslims or 1 or to 1.8 million Asians, even if you take a ratio of 40%, that would be only 500,000 Muslims. That would be 500,000, and not all of them would vote for him. Don't forget. This is not that's just an assumption. Similarly with Asians, it would only be 700,000 if it was all 40%, and they wouldn't necessarily all vote for him. So even that doesn't go up to making up the 1.1 million votes that he got. So again, it comes down to the fact that, people supported him. Maybe people like him. But they certainly wanted to punish the Conservatives. That's for sure. So now that we have this, what's going to happen? Well, traffic bottlenecks are going to get worse. 20 miles per hour will cut whatever's left of our traffic in London into a complete and utter crawl. And these things will turn a whole more legion of drivers into first-time offenders who are all going to get clobbered with fines for doing 24 miles per hour and a 20 limit. Potholes will continue to pervade our paving and destroy our wheels and our tires. Parking spaces will be cut further. By the way, I live in Wembley, right? Not in Wembley, I live near Wembley. I used to go down to Wembley. Now, if you're familiar with Wembley, there used to be a massive open-air car park. So just the walk that goes up to the stadium, on the left side of that. So if you're going from the station to the stadium, on the left side of that, if you just go through cut through the alley there. There used to be a massive open air car park there, right? And I used to use that all the time. It was reasonably priced and it was very accessible. They got rid of that. They're building more flats there, and now the parking that they have is like a long walk away on the other side of the stadium. So where you actually want to go, if you don't want to go to the stadium, which we don't, you want to go to Box Park or the outlet for shopping, there is of course a car park next to outlet, and that car park is not huge, it's good enough. But what happens with that car park is that the moment there's an event on, and it's not always clear, so sometimes I'll set off from here and we'll go, we're going to go to outlet or whatever, and I get there and it's an event day and I didn't realize it was an event day. And if it's an event day, it's £20 daily parking charge flat. You'll be parking there for 10 minutes, you pay £20, and I turn around and come back. I'm like, what the hell? And then now that space has been taken away, and that's the problem. So anyway, but there'll be more of that. Just taking away car parking spaces, and what spaces are left, prices are going to be soaring. I went to Ealing the other day, wanted to go shopping there. I think we were only there like a couple of hours. I think I paid about £6 to £8 to park. It's ridiculous, and also don't forget that they're lining parking prices or parking tariffs with your car. So the more polluting your car, the more you're paying for parking, which again, it's just ridiculous because you're not actually polluting when you're parked. You're not driving. But this is going to happen. More of that is going to happen. And then of course car theft, because crime is out of control in London. It really is. I mean, the stabbings and sword killings and tragic things that are going on. But of course the police don't even bother with car theft anymore. It's like, try reporting car theft. They're like, yeah, okay, well, here's your number. There was just a report the other day on the thing Facebook, and somebody was like, found my car, told the police, and the police were like, well, as long as you know where it is, you better just go and get it, because we ain't got the time. Wow. So, lack of couldn't give a shitness, it's like, so car theft is massive. It's going crazy. Range Rovers are impossible to insure in London now completely, and insurance prices are just going crazy. So by the way, there's 12 incidents per 1,000 of car theft in London, and like I said, this is wreaking havoc with insurance premiums, and insurance premiums, as we know, already 70% up for a lot of people, and they're just rocketing, and they're just making the cost of owning and driving a car just increasingly restrictive. ULEZ and congestion charging, reckon on those restrictions being tightened and prices increasing. And already, don't forget, I mentioned in this previous video, people don't realize this, they think the electric cars are free in congestion charging. Yes, they are, except on Christmas Day 2025, after that, they will be paying congestion charging too. Yeah, even electric cars. And ultimately, the dreaded pay-per-mile, road user charging. It's on its way, he's denied it, he campaigned on I will not introduce it, but we all know that he's setting up for it. We all know that they've set up for it already. So it's inevitable, and it's inevitable. you know, and I, in fact, I predicted in my book, don't forget my book, the ULEZ files. This is out on Amazon. You can get it from there by BC Guy. I've written it under the pseudonym BC Guy. So it's all predicted in my book. And even predicted in my book is the fact that in London, there pretty much won't be any private cars anymore. They'll become an incredible rarity because they'll be virtually banned. That's what will happen. And of course, this will extend to other major cities as well because the Labour government will come in. It's inevitable. We now know that this is going to happen for sure. And of course, they've got a ton of anti-car policies they can't wait to deploy based on what Sadiq Khan has done in London, because this is a test case that then can be rolled out in other parts of the country, which they've already kind of hinted at anyway. So you can see that leisure and shopping and tourism in cities is going to be completely killed off, and our major cities will be turned into ghost towns, and pretty much our economies will be destroyed. Thank you very much. Public transport, you say? The dirty, crowded, poorly run system that we've got, which is always late, or it's broken, or it's cancelled, or it's on strike when you most need it. I mean, come on, are you serious? I mean, look, I don't commute, right? Because I work from home. But every now and then I get a gig and I have to go there. So I had to go to this conference. I was running the conference for last week for 2 days, and only for 2 days. So I only needed to commute for 2 days. That's all I needed, right? And of course, on the first day I went out, train broken down. This was in addition to strikes that were happening, or train strikes. But of course, the train strikes didn't happen, were not meant to affect me. I left home because I using the tube. I checked on the TfL, everything was good. I got to the station. There's a screen on the station on the right. It said all services good. Got on the train, went up to where I needed to change. I had to cross the road to get to another station to change to that train. Station was closed because the line was cancelled because the train had broken down. Well done, great. It's just when you need it, won't work. So yeah, it's not great. So anyway, so all of this is going to happen. And all I've got to say on that is, well, don't come running to me because I told you so. I told you so. You know, as one of those, I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. You know, and you know, that's it really. What can you do now? I mean, not a lot. You know, really. Let's be honest. I mean, like I said, the main thing is that we didn't even send a message. You know, never mind him winning, which we accepted. But if it had been close, if it had been tight, we would have been like, okay, you got the message, right? You got the message. No. Now he walked it. So we didn't even send him a message. You know, and we know that's important. We know that that's important because that's what Uxbridge did. Remember Uxbridge? Remember the by-election Uxbridge? The ULEZ message was very clear, altered the election results there. This was the same scenario where other elections were being won by Labour, but this one wasn't because Uxbridge sent a message. Well done, Uxbridge. But that's now over. That can now be dismissed as an anomaly. So that's like, you know, because even Starmer was talking differently after that. Oh, we better consider the ULEZ very carefully. But that's forget about it now. That's in the past. That's going to dismiss that. So it's a shame. Good effort on the part of the people of Uxbridge, but came to waste. So what can we do? Not a lot. I mean, I've just got to be honest with you. You know, I mean, you could all buy 40-year plus classics and drive those around London. Wouldn't that be a fantastic sight? I would love to see that. But it's not viable. I mean, there's 2.6 million cars in London. Another 1 million come into London on a daily basis. There's only about 340,000 classics in the UK. And most of them are not like this. They're not viable daily drivers. This one is. As I was saying, not a viable daily driver. The GoPro overheated because to be honest, I had my car off. Even if I had it on, it doesn't have aircon in it, so, and it's warmish, so the GoPro just overheated. It was like, I can't handle this, it's too much. Maybe it was the conversation. It was like, I can't do this anymore. Shut down. And I can empathize, I can sympathize, but that's what I was saying though. So I don't know if I got as far as saying, like, you know, there's only 340,000 classics. And you know, it's just not enough. And ultimately, you know, it's not as easy to daily drive a classics. I mean, there's a blog on my car. You can go and check it out, and you can see all the various issues I've had with it. But you know, they need looking after. They need money spending on. They need to be cared for. So it's not that easy. So just aren't enough. I mean, I'd love to see more classics in London for sure. But you know, I don't think it's viable. You could talk to your MP, lobby your MP. That's always worth trying. Might not help, especially if your MP is a Labour MP. Might be a complete waste of time, but it's worth a try. Might be worth a try. Might be worth talking to the media. Hasn't proved effective, sadly, as we've seen. You know, and I'm particularly annoyed with sort of my colleagues, specifically in the automotive media, because they really didn't do enough on this, and they really should have, because ultimately it will probably affect them even more than anyone else. But there wasn't enough of an outcry, there wasn't enough coverage. So yeah, that might be a bit of a waste of effort. What's the other thing? When what was that movie, Twins? You remember that movie from the 80s, Twins? Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. And Arnold Schwarzenegger sits down in front of Danny DeVito, who's in jail. He's like, well, how do I get you out of this? And what did he say to him? He's like, well, he looks up at him and he says, money talks and bullshit walks. And so ultimately that's also part of it. It's like, talk with your wallet, vote with your wallet, talk with your wallet, talk about spending power. Like I said, if the cities become economic ghost towns, that's kind of you talking with your wallet. Ultimately, it's down to local councils, local councillors, local MPs to generate revenue from within their areas, right? Maybe one thing. You could also use your votes. Don't forget, yes, there was this election, and it totally and utterly destroyed the thing is, like, there isn't a pro-car party. There isn't actually a pro-car party. You have everything on the other side, but you don't have a pro-car party. And even the parties that might suggest they're pro-car are not necessarily pro-car. But anyway, but it's still like voting in politics. The main elections will be coming later this year. There may still be a chance to send a message. That's up to you. But honestly, there isn't really a lot more that we can do now. So sadly, I've got to say, cars, motoring, the trade, the car industry, car culture, it's all pretty much doomed in the UK. I'm sorry, but sorry to be really down about it. Maybe just how I'm feeling right now. A lot of you that follow my content, a lot of you that know me, have met me, know that I'm generally an upbeat, optimistic person, but you asked me to make this video, and I can only make it as truthfully as I feel about it. And it's a real shame, because UK, we were amongst the first people on the planet to fall in love with the automobile. At one point, the UK was the biggest exporter of cars in the world. I kid you not, look it up, it's a fact. We barely have a car industry now, so it's all been going in this direction anyway. So there you go. So all those people that said, what do I have to say about the election results? What is there left to say? What is there left to say? Not a lot, apart from make the most of it. Make the most of motoring, cars and car culture while you still can. Shout out time, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, if you enjoy my content, why not get involved? Buy me a coffee. You can do that at either of these links. Or if you're watching on YouTube, buy me a thanks or take out a membership. It all helps. It really does. Check this out, guys. It's my book. It's my first novel, and it's written for car fans like you. It's a fun political action thriller. It's full of cool cars and spectacular action. Get your copy now at Amazon.com.